Alright, I'm back, and it's only taken me 5 months to get around to making this video. A lot of people, after the last video just showing how I edit or convert Fujifilm RAW files, were really interested in seeing more specifically how I create presets, and honestly, since it's been so long, those presets are now, I think they're over here somewhere. So I'm not even using them, but it's still worth doing this video. A lot of people were interested, like I said, and I want to show you guys how I have gone about creating a preset specific to, and when I say specific to, I really mean that, like no one else could possibly have these presets if they're not shooting Fujifilm cameras. Specific to Fujifilm cameras, which means you need a Fujifilm camera to make these presets work if you want them to look the same. So I'm just going to go ahead, and this is what we're talking about, this JS200 and C+, which just means contrast plus, and I'll show you what that does at the end. There's only one difference between the two. So let's just go ahead and apply it. There it is, applied with one click. Here's before and after. Before, straight out of camera. After with the preset applied. Pretty big difference. And I would say the most important part is for this preset is the camera profile. I'm using Fujifilm's classic chrome camera profile, and this is what I meant when I said these presets are specific to Fujifilm cameras, which I think is cool. Canon users, Nikon users, Sony users, they're not going to be able to create or get the same look without this particular camera profile. I mean, I guess they could get close if they spent enough time, but classic chrome, here's kind of what makes this work, so I'll show you. Here's another one of Fujifilm's camera profiles, Velvia, or their Vivid one. Huge difference in mainly color, somewhat in tone. But yeah, classic chrome, very subdued, punchy, desaturated. And then the slider adjustments here for the RGB calibration. These you can copy, pause the video, and write them down or whatever, I don't care. These are for skin tone. I've spent a lot of time when I was creating these presets looking at skin tone and making sure that I could do something that made the photos look a certain way as far as tone was concerned, but also didn't make people's skin look really crazy, especially since we shoot a lot of weddings, so we're shooting a lot of portraits. So there's that. I would say next is probably split toning. Split toning basically just means you choose like a color to tone the highlights, and you choose a color to tone the shadows. Here in the highlights I've got this blue color. It's at 5 saturation, but if you'll look like here at the house, this house, the clouds especially, turning it off makes a big difference. So it goes from like this creamy, warm to more of a normal looking white color. And I'm using that because the split toning in the shadows is pretty heavy. It's an orange-yellow color at this 50 here, and then I've got the saturation set at 15. So with that off, your eyes get used to it, and then the shadows almost look blue. And maybe classic chrome is adding some blue, but I haven't tested that theory. So there it is back at 15, very warm, giving it kind of a moody look between the two. So here it is with split toning completely off. Here it is before. There's split toning still off. That's with split toning applied. So so far, camera calibration, split toning, both very important. And then 2, you know, adjust those to taste. I'd say the tone curve is probably really important. Just getting some punch out of the photo, adding punch to the photo. So turned off, really, really flat, really sort of no depth at all. Turned on, very punchy, pretty high contrast. And the way I shot this photo too, I was trying to save the highlights, so this area did end up being darker. The overall tone curve, I'm adding some effect in the highlights by pulling them down. That sort of evens them out. You do lose a little detail the more you go down, but it gives it kind of a subdued look. And then I'm adjusting the shadows up here to add just a little bit of the, some people call it like a matte look or a fade in the shadows. Don't go too crazy. The further you go up, the crazier it gets, and then you're going to start getting into affecting people's skin the further you go, because it'll start affecting the midtones and shadows on skin. So I leave it right there, and it's really only affecting like the darkest dark areas of the shadows. And then I adjust each channel. I adjust the red channel, green channel, and blue channel. I'm adding a pretty typical S-curve to each one. They're all the same. So if you want the numbers, there's that one in the shadows. Midtones there, highlights there. To me, it's a little more granular than just adjusting this, and then I use this again, like I said, just for effect. Color next up. I would say red and orange, really important for skin tone with this preset. Green, just affecting the grass heavily. Blue, the sky. I don't like very saturated blue skies. I think it's distracting. And in 75% of the photos I'm going to take, the sky is not the subject, and it's not where I want your eye to go. And I feel like every time I look at a landscape photographer's photo, my eye gets drawn to this overly saturated blue sky, and whatever he's really trying to capture in the foreground and middle ground kind of gets lost. So desaturated, and it also ends up adding more to like the warmth of the photo. Greens, very heavily desaturated. You can see that more in this photo in the grass when I apply the preset. So this is before, and then this is with the preset. Yeah, I adjusted like purple and magenta and aqua to taste here. Yellow, kind of, again, affects skin tone. But yeah, be careful with red and orange. People's skin will start to get weird fast. The basic panel, I'm adjusting these because I just use it as like a starting point. Anyone who uses Visco film will know that they kind of adjust their presets this way. And this isn't always correct. Like a lot of the time I find myself wanting to add more back into the whites for some punch, bring the highlights down, or, you know, can let the blacks stay at 0 and add more punch in the blacks. But where it was is a pretty good starting point, especially when you look at a photo like this where like the dynamic range is pretty extreme. So if I zero out the blacks, you notice like that's too muddy, and in fact they probably need to come up something like that. But the highlights, on the other hand, like if those weren't adjusted down, I'd feel like that's just a little too much for me, so pull them back down. I think that's probably about it. those are the main things. I said I would show you what the contrast plus one is doing. So there that is applied. The biggest difference will be, so that's the, I guess the regular one, I don't know. And then contrast plus. Main thing here, tone curve, just more of an extreme curve in both the overall curve and in each channel, red, green, and blue. This preset just makes it a little easier to edit some photos that are like in open shade and could use a little extra contrast when this preset is looking a little dull. But there's nothing different besides the vibrance here. The more contrast you add, the more saturated things look, so I pulled that down. But other than that, no difference color-wise between the two. Whoops. Yeah, well that one, there was that one full screen. Let's look at this one of my wife before she had our son. So you can see here, straight out of camera, Fujifilm files I've noticed are pretty flat. And then that's with the preset applied. Again, subdued, desaturated, skin tone. Looks good to me. I mean, you know, obviously, I think it looks good because this is the preset that I use on basically everything we do. So yeah, again, camera calibration, very important. Classic chrome. Again, this is what it would look like with Velvia. Insane. Like, that's freaky. Classic chrome is what I like to use. And then split toning. Got this blue color in the highlights, orange yellow color in the shadows. There it is with that off, on, very warm, moody. Tone curve, there's that, crushing the highlights a little, putting some fade in the blacks, and that's about it. Let me know if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to see, I don't know, more, or another topic pertaining to Fujifilm cameras. I would love to do another video based on something people think they want to see. Awesome. Thanks.